Session to order.
All right, thank you.
Darren?
Thank you. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the county's highway corridor overlay and uses within that area. Specifically, the county is more counties looking at its standards for highway overlay corridors. In particular, they've asked us to look at uses. Natalie and I went up and met with Moore County planning staff. And they're specifically, seeking input on uses that the village would like to see Moore County prohibit on main highway corridors into the village. As a backdrop, right now Moore County has a highway corridor overlay, and they have 3 specific zones. And if you look on the map before you, this is Moore County. So this is showing all those county highways that you're seeing on there. They all have some type of, or most of them have some type of highway overlay zone, and that's 3 of them, and there's 3 of them. The Village of Pinehurst actually has 2 right now. They have rural highway, and I think we have rural urban transition. So they've asked us to start looking at what those uses are in there. So what we're doing tonight is going to go, I'd like to kind of do what we did with the comp plan, is go over the list of permitted uses in that district, and then either take that district, take that use out of the district, keep it in the district, and we'll report that back. I handed out to you in the interim while you're on break a cheat sheet. I'm sorry, I'm learning this microphone, so I gave you a cheat sheet. I
didn't get one.
Yes, you did.
Okay. There it is.
This is the,
Thank you.
this is the same sheet that was in the agenda package.
That was
Is that
in the agenda
correct?
packet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's correct.
I
So-
saw
but
this.
I
I
thought
thought it
it'd
was
be-
a new document.
I thought it'd be easier for you to exert it out.
It's easier to
This way, if you want
navigate
to, take notes. So this is what was in the agenda packet. This was our first crack at what uses that we think should come out of it, just based on Natalie's and I's looking at it. So that was our first start.
Can I stop you
Go
for
ahead.
1 second? Can you explain the highway corridor districts that the county has? I looked at them some time ago, and what it implies. In other words, what further restrictions are there within a highway corridor district that there wouldn't be in normal county zoning? I think setbacks is one that I remember.
landscaping and setbacks.
Correct. There's a set of, and I found it in section 7, general development standards. They do have another set of restrictions for highway corridor overlay districts. And what they start to get into there is building setbacks from highway, building setback from residential districts, building setback from non-residential districts, maximum impervious surfaces, and that's a constant 70%, maximum building height, and then required buffer plantings from the right-of-way line.
Which are different from the normal requirements, is that correct?
And I believe, Darren,
Correct,
because
correct.
I was at the county, I was administering this for a while, certain parking, only a certain percentage of parking can be in front of the building, the rest must be behind.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so there's more restrictive,
it's more restrictive than,
Yeah, you can think about it, there's base zoning, and then there's this overlay of other requirements that goes over the top of it if that zoning abuts a highway.
and that district only extends 400 feet from the right-of-way, is that correct?
It depends. If it's the urban transition, it's 400 feet. If it's a rural highway, it's 500 feet. And the urban village, which is not in our jurisdiction, is 300 feet. So
Okay.
the 3 different overlays have a little bit different density requirements.
Darren, did I hear this correctly, or do I recall this correctly? Part of what the county wants to do is go from 3 to 1? Am I thinking of something, Natalie, yeah, so
Oh, you bring him on.
I think it's important to recognize this because what they're contemplating is going to a one-size-fits-all solution for all highways. And in other words, there wouldn't be a distinction for a transition zone that abuts our more urban area.
Yeah, that was what was discussed as a potential recommendation coming from the planning staff to the county commissioner. So as Darren mentioned, they have 3 now. At least staff is talking about maybe consolidating it and having one for the entire
When you say
county.
staff, you mean county staff?
County
Right,
staff.
okay, thank you.
And I think from that standpoint, we do have a lot of different highway corridors, so boiling that down to one for all areas of the community, especially when you start to get into the southern Moore County area, it might be, well, I guess the devil's in the details on that one. So they might be able to do it, but I think we need to take a hard look at that. I think as we start to go over the uses, that we might want to recommend peeling back there. I think there might be a little bit of difference between what Aberdeen, Southern Pines, and Pinehurst look at it versus something up in Carthage and towards the north part of the county. The other document that I handed to you, Ms. Hogeman was able to put together, that is, she had taken a look at the same thing that we're going to look at today, and she's looking at it from both a development standard standpoint and a use standpoint. So if you turn to page 3 on her document, it's going to match what we've talked about. And I think Jane was on par with most of the things that I think that we were proposing to peel back in our proposal. I think she was on board with that, and she actually proposes to go a little bit further in some of those areas. So that's I'm putting that in front of you for reference purposes. So we
I understand that this is the Pine Wild PPOA also has agreed to these. And it's very obviously very 211 Pine Wild specific, or at least focuses on that, so.
That is correct.
Yeah, which I think that's a key point, particularly if ultimately the county follows through on this notion of making this a one-size-fits-all across the county type of a deal. I think we need to be mindful of that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that could be problematic, or it's going to be something for us to work with. So the corridors that we're looking at, if you see the one that I've got pulled up right now, that's 15501. So you can see the area that we're talking about. These two little areas. Here's that rural area. The green is the urban area. Rural. I downloaded that one twice. Not that. Sorry, my glasses. I can't find the other one. Here's 211. And here is, wrong one. Here's the 211, the corridor for 211. So these are the areas that we're kind of looking at tonight. And in front of you, in your packet, you have the table of uses. You have the specific use standards. So as we're going over the charts or going over this table, this chapter 8, it will reference you back if you have a question on what an assembly use is, what a restaurant is, what a retail use is. You can actually look in this document to find out, how the county classifies it. So with that said, any questions before we start out and just start plugging away?
Let's start plugging away.
All right, let me find that sheet that we need. Sorry. No, that's not it.
Can I make a global statement in the beginning here? Many times, I don't object to a use. It's just that when people think of a use, whatever the use is, they have in this mind what it would look like. And I think it's sort of a not what you do, but how'd you do it kind of approach.
Character-based zoning.
Character-based zoning fixes all these
Exactly,
issues.
almost exactly that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we form an opinion on what a use is going to look like, whether it may or may not look like that, in the end anyway. So I'm more concerned about, what it looks like and how it is executed rather than the actual use. There's some uses that I think I'm going to have opinions on, but in general, I would prefer to see some orientation and move towards either character-based, form-based, or at least not what it is, but how it's done approach.
Much easier way to accomplish this.
Right.
Try to You could do all these uses that are approved badly. You could do uses that are not pre-approved. Great. It's such a challenge.
Yeah, any one of these could be done poorly or real well. I mean,
Yeah.
at this,
Question, does the county have the ability to have architectural standards for commercial buildings?
Yes.
Sure.
They have the ability. I don't know if it's written into their code.
Yeah.
I don't think it's written into the code, but they have the ability. We can certainly make a suggestion, because like Jack says, it's not what it is, it's really how it's done.
right.
Character-based?
Well, we want at least some architectural standards that could be, adopted. I'm not sure that they'll go for it.
For highway corridors. that
Or
are highly
for the
visible.
highway corridors
Yeah.
only.
And
Yeah, that would be good.
gateway corridors. I mean, I don't know what term will resonate best with the county, but
I mean, you take 211 is a great example. I mean, you have, for example, there's a used childcare, I guess, daycare, like Shining Stars. That's kind of sort of an attractive facility, the way they put it together. And yet, next door is another use, which is the standard steel prefabricated building, sitting with the parking up front. So it's not necessarily what the use is, it's how it's done. It's so important to the appearance and the way the highway looks, long term.
I agree. A lot of what I've heard, a lot of the concerns that I've heard, I personally think that we can mitigate through good environmental design. I think things that we've held up as great examples along, and Jane and I were talking about it, along 15501 are really good examples of things that we can do, like down by Belk and down by Fresh Market, things like that. I think those are things that we can work on. So I think and that's what it takes us to work with the zoning code, with the PDO to make that work, and I think we can accomplish that. Right now with the county, are we there with the county? Probably not. So the first
We can
step.
go through this. I just wanted
Sure.
to make sure
No.
that we emphasize to the county, it isn't necessarily the use, it's how it's implemented.
I think the number one question should be, are you willing to adopt some architectural standards for the highway corridor overlay districts only?
Right, it's a
there was
question.
another way to word it, because I think if a business does it right, their business might go up. I mean, it's not just we're telling you what to do. We're trying to help you be successful. And I just don't think architectural standards communicate that very well. I mean, I think it's something bigger. I don't know, character-based corridor, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out, I understand what resonates with us. I'm trying to figure out what resonates with the county and how we could get them to buy in, that's all.
Well, we can have a conversation. I mean, this can start the ball rolling. And let's start the ball rolling on this so we can.
Okay,
Yeah, you better take control, man. You know it.
long enough.
So category one, accessory uses, accessory buildings, that one. And if you look on the sheet, the applicable columns for us are the ones in yellow that are highlighted. So if you look at this one, we weren't proposing any changes, accessory uses in buildings. We thought they should be permitted as they are in our regular PDO.
Can I give an exception to that on the residential? It allows accessory use in the front yard.
Accessory uses are normally required to be in the backyard or the side yard.
But I'm saying that the county zoning for accessory uses under these RA zonings allow accessory uses in the front yard.
Where do you see that?
It says in the back, in the detail. It allows accessory uses in the front yard, and that's a part I would ask the county to consider changing within the highway commercial, or within the highway overlay districts.
I'm looking in section 8.1 for standards for accessory uses or buildings. Accessory buildings shall be located in the rear side yard with the exception of the RA zoning district,
With
which
the
allows.
exception of the RA.
with-
zoning.
RA is
RA.
like
With the-
way
with-
rural.
Which is, I believe, the straight RA, if you go to the middle where it says straight RA in the,
RA, not RA districts, plural?
that's,
What It just says RA district?
it says RA zoning district.
See, there's R30 and RA30, RA whatever, and then there's RA. RA
It's a
is
question.
Most
Never
rural,
mind.
most rural.
Never mind.
That is odd. You'd think if if they permitted it in RA, it would be permitted in the other ones as well.
I must have misread it.
RA is extremely rural, so that's the difference. And most of the county is zoned RA.
But it can be developed at 1 acre lots
Oh, yeah.
too.
Okay.
Whereas
I just want caution on that one.
RA2 and RA5 can't.
It can be rezoned
Yeah.
I would just issue a caution on that one, you know what I'm saying, Darren?
Okay, thank you.
for side yard.
All right, moving on to agricultural uses. We had proposed eliminating the agricultural uses in buildings that are not a bona fide farm in all the districts, in all the RA districts and the B1 and B2 districts. Now, we weren't, at this point, we probably weren't thinking countywide. We were probably being a little bit more specific to our corridor. So I think,
Oh, yeah.
I think if you look at it countywide, yeah, I think it's probably appropriate countywide. But if we're starting to hone in on our particular districts and wanting to start a conversation with county about our particular districts, we thought this would be a good starting point.
Yeah, and as a case in point, I had this conversation with Darren earlier today. Falling back on yesterday's conversation, this wouldn't allow a horse farm to abut a highway. Would not. A horse farm generally does not meet the requirements for a bona fide farm.
Right.
Wow.
Because, yeah, there are specific requirements for bona fide farm exemptions, and they generally are geared toward active production of agricultural products or trees,
Silviculture.
not recreational horses.
That be an exception?
Yeah.
I saw somewhere that the determination of something being a bona fide farm will be made by the planning department. So
Yes.
those are the criteria they use.
Mind a place looking like Kentucky. Have you
I
ever
don't-
driven
I
through the
don't
horse area in
Exactly.
Kentucky?
I'd love to drive through Lexington.
Right.
It's,
Maybe we should propose another use that would
it's,
be.
it's about specific exemptions from actual tax value and
They could use
zoning
tax-free
requirements
fuel.
that
They
the
could use
general
ta-
statutes enable, so.
They could use tax-free fuel, I think, if
I
you're a
think so,
bona
yeah.
fide
They get
farm.
their
So you
own-
don't have to-
their own pump.
You get a different rate on your fuel, so maybe I understand it a little bit.
I think the one thing that if you start to look at section 8.2 of their specific use standards, their definition of what agricultural uses and buildings are, not a bona fide farm, is pretty extensive because they allow animal and poultry, breeding, managing, selling, and producing livestock, beehives, fish, poultry, that kind of stuff.
Barns, stables, those all would be
So chicken
buildings, agricultural uses in buildings.
houses could be by the road, but not a horse farm.
Well, if you were breeding
If you're
horses.
producing chickens as an agricultural product, yes.
But it also does call out the equine industry as, so it's all, it's all, yeah, it's all allowed in one.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could make a note that, I mean, if there's some support for, you know, trying to deal with the equine industry, we could talk to them about that. That's,
Yes.
There's less support for chicken farms.
A lot less.
I understand that
And
use.
chicken trucks.
Yeah.
any other concerns with agricultural uses and buildings? If not, we can move on to the next one, residential uses. So for this one, we didn't make any changes with accessory dwelling located within a stick-built dwelling. I think Jane and Pinewild had a little question on that, if you can see in hers.
I only have one question in this general category, and it's a home occupation level 2. This is one of your favorite, I know that, Nancy. I think if the list of home occupation level 2s, if I go back to 812, let me find it in a second here. I made some notes.
I'm guessing it's people.
There was about 3 or 4 uses under home occupation level 2 that looks like they're suitable, and I have a question whether you'd want them in the overlay district or in the corridor. animal shelters, overnight kennels, small appliance repair shop, which may include outdoor storage, and trade contractor office and workshop, which may include outdoor storage. These are level 2 allowed.
It's part of a home, though.
Well, yes, but I mean, there's some small homes on big parcels
No.
along like 211's a
Conditional,
good
though,
example.
right?
Right, but it's
Isn't that
not
what
like
C
a
means?
kennel like on Route 1.
In the RA2 and RA5 district, they would be conditional. They are not allowed in the B1 or B2 district, of course.
What does it say about conditions for those?
It does say conditional, but still,
It doesn't have a specific, like we have a special requirement. I don't see a special requirement in here or across, well, I could. For which one are we talking about now? We're talking about,
Accessory
Level 2
dwelling,
home
occupation level 2,
home occupation.
yeah, you'd have to cross, see, each of the standards down there has a different standard, like animal shelters might have a different standard in 8.2.
well, the only thing I was mentioning is that if it's possible to note to the county that, at least in my opinion, and you can, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but those particular uses within the highway commercial, or not highway commercial, the highway overlay district would be prohibited, even though they're allowed under home occupation level, number 2. Does that make sense? I'm probably not expressing that correctly.
What part of it
I-
are you objecting to?
I'm saying that in a highway corridor district,
Outside storage
under
area.
conditional uses, what is permitted, what is
Yeah.
allowed under permitted conditional uses, animal shelters, overnight kennels, small appliance repair, including outdoor storage, and trade contractor office and workshop with outdoor storage. See where I'm
Particularly
going with that
outdoor
whole?
storage and the kennels
Yeah.
and.
The outdoor storage was standing out.
Well, that's for those particular two, yes. You
And
see where I was going with that logic?
I see where you're going, but I think we have to remember it is the county. And there will be setbacks in landscaping.
But they've asked us what our recommendations are as far as uses
Have to
and
figure out what
or
we can get away
restrictions
with.
on uses, and
Yeah.
I'm just bringing that forward as a possibility.
I kind of think about this kind of along the ways of a word that Kevin used before, it's gateways. And it's not really gateways, but if you think about the fact that Moore County's highways are, it's the way people that don't live in Moore County generally see Moore County. It's the things that they see. And so I think our feedback should be oriented on preventing the sites that we don't want outsiders to see in Moore County. And I think that the outside storage can be unsightly.
That's where I was going from it, particularly if we're talking about just corridors here, right? I mean, and they're focused on corridors, which tend to be the transition between rural and urban, if you want to call it that. I'm not
Maybe.
prohibiting it elsewhere. I'm just saying that
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah.
corridor, this seems to be not inappropriate.
Might be one corridor that follows the highways all the way across Moore County, though. That's part of the, but it is. I mean, I made this analogy in a different conversation once before, but Moore County's highways are kind of like Moore County's front yard.
Mhm.
And we all generally think that it's acceptable to do some things and have some things in our backyard that we would never put in our front yard.
I think that, we're dealing with somebody else's property, the county's, and I think that would resonate easier than going through all these things we want to exclude. You got to sell it. You got to sell the idea to the county.
How
And
is this going to be sold to the county? How is this going to be presented to
yeah.
them? I mean, I don't want to go to any open meeting and say, I don't want any manufactured homes
Yeah.
in Highway Corridor Overlay District. I don't want to have to do that.
Right, and then, but
Staff will
at
do
the
it.
same meeting, you could sell, you want to make sure we improve our corridor, and I think that would be acceptable by people that would be not acceptable to all these
If
So I'm
it's-
just trying to say, the nuance matters. I understand where you're coming from, going through the specific uses. Is there another way to tackle this that could be more consistent with what we're going to getting it approved?
I think they're asking for our recommendations.
They're asking for
Okay,
feedback on
okay.
uses. Yeah.
And I think this was our.
They're free to reject and/or accept whatever
Okay.
they think. It depends on our logic and
Okay.
our argument.
How about this? I don't think we can predict everything, kind of like you said on the before in the character, but making a good-looking corridor, I think, if they understand the context, maybe that would help along with us doing this. You know.
As long as it's going to be staff to staff, I think it'll be fine.
Yes, that's the other
It'll
thing.
be fine. If it's staff
Politics
to
leave out
staff,
of it.
let's just give them our wish list.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, what's going to happen is we're going to share a similar, whatever comes out of this, we're going to share a similar sheet like this with them, and then along with some of the concerns that I'm hearing, we're going to write them up and say, well, these are some of the other concerns. I think outdoor storage, especially our outdoor storage in the front yard, is a huge concern. That's a use. So we're going to get that buy-in. Any other
But
comments?
not the backyard, yeah.
So this is going to be a work in progress, and there's other municipalities that are going to provide input to the county as well. So the county's going to have to take all this stuff together, and it'll be a continuing working session. So I think what you just suggested is, here's some global, high-level things that we think are critically important. And then, as the mayor said, for the staff to get together and
Staff to staff, that's fine.
work,
Correct.
and do the deep dive.
Correct. Residential uses, we had, accessory dwelling located non-residential dwelling, we have those two permitted. We pulled out the accessory manufactured homes. Manufactured homes we pulled out, personal workshop, storage building we pulled out. Major subdivision we put in as conditional. Any concerns with any of those or anything we've missed?
I think excluding manufactured homes is a high bar.
It's a very high bar.
There are some manufactured homes these days that are very pleasant.
You're correct. It's correct, especially with some of the modular ones.
Yeah.
Those are manufactured, and you can do a nice one. On the other hand, it becomes
That's
to the
right.
design
You
standards
either
what
have,
we're
but
talking about.
you either have to say it's okay or not. And
Well, but it's okay to put it on the list
it's
because
different.
they take it away, they take it away.
Where are mobile homes on this? Typically,
Manufactured,
I've always
Zoning
seen them as
differentiates
manufactured.
between them.
Zoning differentiates between them, but my experience is manufactured homes and mobile homes are the same thing because they're both manufactured.
There's a manufactured,
There
there's
is
a
a-
manufactured home.
no, there is a modular home that is built to the state standards that you cannot, unless something's changed, that you can't
can't prevent it.
prevent anywhere. It's built to the state building code,
That's a good
modular
point.
homes.
Yeah,
I don't see modular homes listed here, though.
that's that's the problem with this language. It would fall under manufactured homes.
Wait a minute. Under commercial uses, they have manufactured or modular home sales.
Well,
Like that
that's
place on Route
it's those
1.
places where they sell where you
On
see
Route 1,
But they use the term modular.
But if you look at what a manufactured home is, by their definitions, a factory-built, single-family dwelling which is manufactured under the authority of the Federal Manufactured Home Construction and Safety Standards Act of 1976. And I don't see any specific, they talk about HUD labeling in here, things
Yeah,
like
they're-
that.
They're built to the HUD standard, and a modular
homes.
home is built to the state building
Both of them
code.
are.
But there's a difference between that and a mobile home, which retains the wheels and is licensed as a
Right.
vehicle, right? And you
They're
pay
typically-
taxes
they're
differently.
Typically a different category, and
an RV.
I don't see it here.
I think the concern for us at this point, and why we're recommending pulling them out, is there is no design standard that we know of at the county, so we felt it would be easier to pull it out and let them come back in if they come up with some
There
decent.
can't be a design standard.
Right.
Correct.
Or a manufactured home?
That's right. That's right.
All
Unless it's under,
detailed.
Yeah,
that's correct. So, yeah, so,
but to Mayor Fiorillo's point, there can't be a design standard, and we can't say you can't have, I mean, if it meets the building code, I think it has to be allowed.
I have seen some communities use something called a Class A manufactured home, which is a double wide that has a permanent foundation, has a porch and steps. Now, I don't think,
Taxed as a regular home, not as a mobile home, right?
well, a manufactured home is taxed as a manufactured home, but it's taxed.
Okay, why don't you let me,
Doesn't
You
North
better
Carolina-
get
Do
through
some more
this.
research on this one.
let me, let me, before we recommend, let me have some discussion with county planning staff on that. I
Great.
think again, Jeff especially might be right, because, yeah, we generally have to treat them the same as a single-family dwelling per the federal statutes.
Just to make us more comfortable with this, after we do this, we're going to look at things that we can't control maybe after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to get through this. But things we can't control, it'd be ridiculous to try.
What's the concern about personal workshops and storage buildings?
The
This is a
back.
residential use, so this is,
In the back, I think, was the only
It was the
concern.
external storage.
this is not home occupation level 2.
Correct.
Personal workshops and storage buildings.
So that was your concern, Jack, right?
No, my concern was.
This would be an accessory use
Yep.
on a
Accessory
on a
building.
Correct, it'd
residential
be an
lot.
accessory building, like a
Accessory building.
detached garage.
Yeah.
His concern was it being in the front yard.
Right.
And that's what
Okay.
my concern would be about this
But
too.
if it's not in the front, it's not
Yeah,
allowed
that's
to
what
be in
his-
the front yard, it's
and I
probably
agree with
okay?
his
Not
concern.
by, not,
Yeah.
so if we can undo that and make them permitted, if that's the way everybody's thinking.
Say, not in the front yard, so leave it.
Okay. All right, multifamily residential, want to move on to that? So we have group care facility, we were proposing in B1. B1 is the neighborhood, B2 is the commercial, is highway districts. So, conditional in B1, permitted in B2.
A group care facility?
Correct. And by definition, that's an inpatient facility which provides supervision, medical care, behavioral and rehabilitation services, counseling, and may include outpatient follow-up care for juveniles and adults. That's a long definition. This definition includes the terms of homeless shelters, group homes for ex-convicts, halfway transitional houses, boarding homes for children, psychiatric facilities, and drug and alcohol rehabilitation facilities.
That's good.
Next is nursing home, and we put nursing home as recommended as conditional in all the RA districts and permitted in the B1 and B2 districts. Jane and Pine While they were a little bit, they recommended pulling those two uses out.
I think
Pulling
you're
off what?
okay.
So next, if we go to the next page, that would start out, and you go down to, if you, in the B1 and B2, kennels overnight. We put those both as, recommending both those as conditional uses in the B1 and the B2 district. Any question on kennels? Next would be pet daycare, grooming, obedience training, permitted uses, as we did propose down to veterinary clinics. We recommended those as permitted uses. Again, they all have standards that are associated with them. We're not going over those standards at this point, but we're looking at the uses. Any questions on any of those? Okay. Let's move down to offices and general services.
The numbering is quite confusing here because the number under specific use standards is not exactly what
Not
it
lining
is
up?
in the
Yeah, I noticed that as well. It's usually,
connect here.
they must have yanked something out or changed something. It's usually one ahead or one behind.
Numbers aren't right, exactly.
No, and I didn't make, we pulled this down from their ordinance, just so you know.
We don't want to point that out too heavily, I don't think.
Sometimes they line up, sometimes they don't. Okay, offices and general services, ATMs, we put that as permitted uses, B1, B2. Barber shops, nail salons, permitted uses, dry cleaning and laundromats, permitted use. Hotel and motel, that is one where we just recommended permitted use in the B2 district. Offices in the B1, B2, small appliance repair shop. I know there's some concerns about some of those standards, permitted uses for both districts. And then we had proposed taking out trade contractor, office, and workshop. The county has it in the neighborhood as a conditional, and they have as a permitted use in the B2.
The reality of that type of use is that you need a lot of equipment many times, like a tree service. I mean, you're not going to have a tree service without a lot of equipment. So it just inherently has to have a certain character, whether you like it or not. It's hard to put a lipstick on that stuff.
Correct? I don't disagree. I think that's why we proposed pulling that out of the corridor. Any other questions? Should we move on?
The tourist home, I need to get that clarity in my
A
head.
tourist home? We're not touching, oh, yeah, we are touching. Sorry, I missed that one. Good one, Kevin. Conditional use in the RA district.
Say what it is, because I'm a little confused.
It's a very, very old term.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any
VRBO.
VRBO, that's what it sounds like to me, yeah.
That's generally what they are.
What is a tourist home? Does anybody know? Be it like a
And
bed
this
and
is one,
breakfast?
this is one where it's not lining up. Let's see here.
Yeah. I believe it's a bed and breakfast type situation.
I'm sure it's not.
I like the equestrian cottage, which is, accommodations for visitors with equestrian needs. I mean, what does that mean? I mean,
You know, they
Are very ancient terms.
don't,
I'm sorry.
it is an old term, but it's not even, I don't know if they pulled it out of their standards because it's not in here.
okay.
Well, and until we know what it is, we can't have it in there either.
All righty, let me make a note here.
Darren, where does,
We have this rule. We don't know what it is.
unless we just haven't gotten to it yet. Oh, maybe it's later on.
Okay?
So, small engine repair, for example, is not part of appliance repair, right?
8.32, let me just check that. Small engine repair. Repair establishments where the principal activity includes but not limited to the repair of home appliances equipment, bicycles, lawnmowers, shoes, clocks, watches, and jewelry.
It can be small engine repair, though, the way I read it,
It can or it can't?
Lawnmowers, I mean, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, lawnmower. It says lawnmower, so I would think something of that variety, but then you go into vehicle repair shops and automobile service stations are separate definitions. So if you're starting some type of small, car shop, I think they would have to, by that definition, boot it to another category. But when you put lawnmowers, see, lawnmowers are generally they're a small accessory residential tool. It's almost like a tool, so. well, it isn't
We're
appliance.
saying
No,
that
no,
the
some-
category under office and general services, small appliance repair shop,
Oh, yeah.
permits small engine repair?
Depends on what small engine. If it's
A lawnmower.
if it's a lawnmower, yes.
It does,
If it's a car, I would say no.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say small engine.
Okay.
so.
Okay. Yep, I would agree.
But back on tourist home, Google says
Thank you.
it's defined as a place where rooms in someone's house are rented to travelers. A private home with a room for rent for a few nights is an example of a tourist home.
That's-
VRBO.
And that's a relatively standard definition. We had that in our update in Oshkosh. It was called a tourist home until they changed the state law and we had to define everything as a short-term rental. So that came out of our ordinance.
Asheville's ordinance calls that something specific. It's not a tourist home, it's like a guest home or something like that.
Guest house, yeah.
Guest house, I think that's right.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to move on now? Retail services, so if you want to go down the list here, we got auction house, convenience store, feed and seed sales, florist. We pulled out flea market. We kept in garden center. We pulled out manufactured or modular home sales because, everybody can picture what those look like, I think. Restaurant, we kept in retail. Shopping center, we kept as a conditional use. Well, that should be a C for us. And then wholesales as a P.
I have one note on retail, and that is within retail, what's in their detail is unattended, freestanding ice houses.
What's that?
Oh, yeah, well, we've got one on Route 5,
Yeah, yeah, you got
There's the
one
ice
at the
machine.
shopping center.
an
Ice houses?
freestanding ice machine. I mean,
Oh,
that's considered retail.
Give them money and you get something.
what category is that in?
It's under retail sales on page 51 in your stuff or whatever.
Which one of these category, which use is that?
8.41.
That would be, it's right there, retail, third from the, third.
Oh, under,
row from the
under
bottom.
the, okay, retail.
Under retail services, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the third from the last, retail.
Yeah.
If you look at, it says 841, but it's really 842.
Yeah.
One of the categories is ice houses and machines are considered,
I see ice machines, the self-service. And we'll have to check on that because I would think that the intent is where you go to like a gas station and you have or sometimes liquor stores and you have the ice machine outside where you go out and you pull.
No, no,
It-
no,
there's
you
a
gotta go down Highway
freestanding-
5.
No, I've seen it. No, I've seen it. That's the only one I've seen around.
it says
But-
specifically, this use can be a principal use
Oh,
or
there
an
it is. No.
or an accessory
No,
use.
I see it. It's C. I was looking, I was stuck up in A in the definitions. You're down in
Right,
C. I
right,
agree.
right.
Yep, I see it.
No, I question whether that makes sense. I mean, that's where
Maybe
I'm,
there'd be a special exemption or a exclusion for something like that.
Because
it's the kind of thing where, someone buys a piece of property and they want to have a concession, or it's tends to
Monetize.
be like putting up a little freestanding car wash, which throw up an ice machine. You can make money doing that. I mean, it's not bad. It's a good thing to do, but whether you want it on every
Yeah. It
corridor is a
can
question.
be kind of unsightly.
Yeah.
Now
they
you're
don't
seeing-
work unless they're on corridors, so that's the interesting.
I think the ice machine thing, I wouldn't allow, I would tend to, just has a note.
Sure.
That retail in general, I mean, we're okay with that, I guess, but the ice machine part, a little
Now you can see,
devils in the details as always.
This is,
yep,
on that note, or that particular use, but also
I
like
don't
to go
think we're
back
going to have any
to,
public comment.
Oh.
I don't think so. Does anybody anticipate public comment by Jane tonight, or are we just going through this ourselves?
Going through this, that's too,
I'm just reminding you about time laws, because I think they've been forgotten in a couple of the last sections.
Okay.
I thought we got your document. How can you be forgotten when we got your
Look at
document?
it. Take a look at this. The
I'm
staff will
wondering-
take a look at this as it compares to what you're doing, right?
no, and Jen and I sat down and talked a little bit. It's
Okay.
just that,
Right.
I'd like to go back to manufactured and mobile home sales and use it to illustrate a point. And it may not be the best example to illustrate that point, but, I mentioned that I think, when I think about this process we're going through right now, it's about appearance. Another question I think that we should be asking ourselves is, if not on the highways, where?
This is true.
Or we're gonna set ourselves up for failure.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, I mean, where would you expect to see a manufacturer modular home sales organization?
Not in the woods somewhere.
No,
I think
yeah.
it's about setbacks and trees, and I feel like we're asked to do this exercise, so it's a good reason. But after we're done, we have to get back to the corridor setbacks, trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think they already have the standards. Are they asking us to look at their standards, just the uses? I think
We're
you're
talking-
right,
You were
Jeff.
talking about
If not
sales,
on a
right? You were talking about
highway.
manufacturing.
Sales, yeah.
Right.
If not on a
Manufactured
highway.
modular home sales. I
We
mean,
have to have an answer to that question, and not that we want them.
yeah, and I think it's, I mean, I don't think it's permissible to say we can't have that anywhere in Moore County.
Well, it is
So if it's
permitted
gonna be
in
in
the
somewhere-
industrial
Well,
zoning.
we've got it as industrial.
I'm sorry?
It's in the industrial zoning districts
Yeah, we just took
permitted?
it out of B2, and it's in.
Right, but industrial, it can be on these highways too,
Right.
and in most cases probably is.
Right.
We're just not focused on it because we don't have it highlighted because we don't have any county industrial zoning in our area of interest.
I mean, you take the one up in Tramway, or
Yeah.
just outside of
It's very
Tramway.
attractive.
I mean, I'm not objecting to them having a manufactured home sales. If in fact it was set back a little bit with a sign, in the front, and you drove in into a little park where they
About how
had.
it's done.
Where they had the houses, in fact, that's a kind of an attractive, could,
Yeah.
with the right implementation, could be at least very attractive. But it's all has to do with the implementation,
Yeah.
once again.
My concern is we
I
can't
wouldn't throw it out just as a matter of course.
go through every use and still not fix that if we can't try to fix that part,
You're-
The
you're-
the look part, but
the look part, yeah.
Well, these days, if you want to sell manufactured and modular homes, you're going to put your nice product up front. So, but behind every manufactured home sales lot, there's an old mobile home graveyard.
that's what they traded in.
They have the trade-in
They're not always in, they're not always.
But see,
out
that
back.
would be outside the highway corridor.
back. They're in the back.
It's in the way back.
It's in the way back.
So what are the thoughts on, we're putting a P back in front of this, or we're,
Let's go for it without that P in B2.
I think when we're done, we have to figure out a way to really look at this objectively as a third party and figure out how to position it properly.
Yeah.
And that's what I said in the beginning, and I'll just say it again.
well, I think you can see the challenge. I mean, as we go through this endeavor, we're looking at each of the uses, and we're taking issue with maybe a use or two within their overall district. So these all start to add up, so you
Yeah.
start to see how much of a task that we actually have here. We're not just taking if we're saying, oh, this part of it's okay, but this part's not. So you can see how much staff work's going to be between us and county planning to see if we can get something accomplished, and we'll try.
The uses that you object to, make them conditional uses.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
Yeah, and then there would be
That would
conditions.
solve a lot of it.
Meet certain standards in order to be permitted, yeah.
Because if you're just no, it's just they're not going to accept it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That's correct, and I think I talked a little bit with Jane and Pinewell, and I've seen some comments that maybe we make some of those conditions, so I think we'd be open
Got to
to that.
let you get through this, though. Okay.
Correct. All right, should we move to the next page?
While we're young, and that would.
Do you want to move to the next page? Commercial uses continued, page 18. So on our particular list, we proposed pulling out boat and RV storage. Commercial truck wash, we proposed pulling out. Parking lot as a principal use, we proposed taking that out as well. The rest we proposed keeping in, so even on the Zs should be Cs, so they're conditional use permits for us.
I had the same comment about commercial truck wash. I mean, it's not an appealing use, but if you ask yourself, if not on a highway, where would it be? It would be on a highway, wouldn't it?
So that's why conditional, but we're not doing the conditions, that's the only problem, right?
Right,
Correct. But we
Well,
have a voice at the table. The neighbors have a voice.
yeah.
I think an interesting example is the UPS facility over in Southern Pines off Route 1. I mean, I don't know how many people go over there
All the
occasionally.
time, yeah.
But, I mean, there it is off, very close to Route 1, but back a little bit, the separate
Industrial
freestanding
area.
building in
Good
a
example of the site.
industrial area.
Yeah.
But it doesn't in any way detract from Route 1 as you go up and down Route 1.
Except for the parade of UPS trucks exiting in the morning.
So, zoning, I don't know exactly how they did it, but there's sort of an industrial park, but it's set back at least enough distance so that it doesn't sit
the
right
other
on the
standards.
highway.
Be a good
Yeah.
methodology to
Right.
give examples. That would be the best way to get this across. If
We
we
want to make this conditional then?
I think leaving it industrial is fine.
Oh, leave the truck wash in industrial. Yeah.
And
give examples when we do this.
still pulling it out of the B1 and B2 then? Keeping our proposal as is, or do you want us, okay. Okay. Just a note for Jane, back there in Pinewild, they had proposed pulling out car wash, taxi, vehicle service stations, and vehicle wrecker service. Next one up is adult uses. So on adult uses, we were proposing keeping a bars tavern in the B2 district, brewery in the B2 district, a dance club, nightclub, billiard in the B2 district. Proposed pulling out the massage and bodywork therapy practice unlicensed out of the B2, pulling out the pawn shop, and then pulling out the tattoo and body piercing. If we look at Pinewild, they were at bars, breweries, and dance clubs. So that's where we are. Any concerns, questions, discussion on any of our proposal there? Again, a lot of this becomes design standards and how it's implemented and not the use itself. We can do a lot with environmental design, but you're right, we don't have the full control at the county level, but this might start some of those conversations with them. Any concerns? Should we move on to the next one? Do you want us to undo one or put some in another district? Okay. Let's go on to educational and institutional uses. If you can see, we pulled them out as a cemetery and mausoleum, commercial in the RA districts, pulled it out of the B1 district, pulled the family cemetery out of all the RA districts, kept the child
I
care.
asked about the cemetery.
Sure.
Why are we so against cemeteries?
We're opposed to dead people. I don't.
They're quiet. They're very quiet. There's no noise complaints, except on Halloween.
Not sustainable.
I think from a land use standpoint, from a zoning standpoint, to create new uses for cemeteries on the highway, it seems like they can be in a better place out of a corridor somewhere.
Quiet areas off the
in a
highway
rural,
would be better.
quieter area.
Well, my parents are buried in Pine Lawn, and I go by there on Morganton Road all the time, and I think
Your
they
parents
enjoy
are-
the hub,
They enjoy the hub?
Yeah, right.
Really? Okay.
being
Wait.
part of the action.
It was there, that was there before it became hustle bustle, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
One of the biggest issues with cemeteries, and all kidding aside, with cemeteries is as areas change, regardless of whether it's Pinehurst or any other community, what happens when you put them on some of those commercial corridors and those commercial corridors heat up or you have to do some changes, it's very hard to relocate a cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard. If you ever watch Poltergeist, it's very hard to relocate a cemetery. So that's probably why we put them in there. So
Or Caddyshack,
Yet
which
they
says it's the
provide an
worst
open-
use of
and
real
yet they
estate.
provide an open, calming area, right?
It is, it's almost like open
they are
space.
they are park settings. You're correct.
I mean,
Yes.
they don't really interfere
Bucolic.
with the residential nearby. I mean,
I think we're getting a little giddy.
All right, so
Because it's 5 after 8, maybe?
okay.
Or
Should
a
we-
golf course.
Point, though. I
Yeah.
hear your point, Jack.
Okay, so why family cemetery?
Is the family cemetery different than a cemetery?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Well,
someone.
we're saying we take it out,
Yeah.
though.
Well, I think for some of the reasons that I stated, in the kind of in the corridor, in that highway corridor, I think we're looking at, future uses and transitioning those
Oh,
uses out.
because those residential uses might give way to commercial uses.
Exactly.
later
Right.
on.
Or
Exactly.
more residential, even.
Exactly. So I think that's probably one of the main drivers.
Okay.
Childcare facilities, we kept that as permitted use. College, business, and trade schools in the B2. Funeral homes, accessory crematoriums, both neighborhood and highway. Ps, government facilities, permitted uses. Hospital, permitted uses. Museum, art galleries, permitted uses in both. Religious institutions, and we left that in all the RAs and the B1 and B2. The RLUPA laws make it very hard for us to keep those type of assembly uses out of districts in general. And schools, elementary, middle, and high, we kept that in B1 and B2. If you look at the Pinewild list, the Pinewild list proposes paring it down pretty much to everything but museums, cemetery, and cemeteries, and child home care home. Any other questions on what's left there? Okay, let's move on to recreational uses. Recreational uses, we kept in accessory swimming pools, We pulled out the airstrips, small private airstrips. We kept in Assembly Hall Z, I think that's conditional use. That's in the county, it's conditional zoning district. Civic, social club and lodge organization, permitted use. Golf driving range permitted. Golf course, including par 3, permitted. Neighborhood park permitted. Recreation indoor, conditional in neighborhood, permitted in highway. Recreational low impact, outdoor, permitted. And then we pulled out recreational high impact, shooting range, indoor, shooting range, outdoor, zoo, petting zoo. We pulled those out of the B2 district. I know there was concerns on the Pine Wild list on some of those based on some recent attempted zone changes in that area. So
I'd like to see a marina on 211, that'd be in it.
On recreation, low impact, what's the double P in there for?
recreational, I have no clue. I think that's just a
Typo.
typo.
Okay, all right.
Thank you for catching that. Any other concerns about things we're proposing to take out or leave in? Industrial uses, this will be quick. There's nothing in industrial uses, manufacturing, light, or general in the corridor. Then we get down to the utility services, amateur radio, receive-only antennas, we pulled all those out. Contractor storage yard and office, we pulled that out. Crematorium facility, we pulled that out. Those are more industrial. Public and private utility facilities, we kept those in all districts. Solar collectors, on-site use, kept those as permitted uses in all districts. Wireless communication facility, that's a conditional zoning district over there in B2. Co-location on existing wireless facility, we kept those as permitted uses. So any concerns with that one? I think Pine Wild had wireless and co-location as concerns.
So would that last one, WCF, work for 5G?
These are generally larger, I think these are
things?
generally the antennas.
Anything new is
These are
gonna be
the
5G.
These are the towers, and the 5G
Okay.
is generally
Okay.
the smaller, shorter ones to the ground. Okay, last page. Again, industrial uses, we're not going to have a lot in there. Mini warehouses, we propose pulling those out of the B1.
Is that?
Which was self,
Mini storage.
That's
Storage,
that's
storage,
per-
that's
that's
self-storage.
it's personal storage. Those are personal storage uses.
oh, personal storage, they're not self-storage. The,
Well, it's
thing,
self-services. You go in, it's like, you could just
They
take.
just
you could
finished
rent
that
one.
on
That new one
211.
on 211?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good one.
Like Carolina self-storage, you see a lot of those all over
Right,
the
and
place.
now that it's more than that, now it's a U-Haul place with trucks.
U-Hauls are doing them
with
quite a bit.
U-Haul truck
More-
parked
more to
out front.
U-Haul is buying large old big boxes all over the country, overpaying for them and putting a lot of self-storage facilities in them. Mini warehouses, so we propose pulling those out of the corridor. Also warehousing or distribution center, we are proposing that as a conditional use permit. Pinewell, I think, propose us taking it out. Any
Well,
concerns?
I can understand that. I mean, warehousing and distribution center is a high volume activity.
Have to be
I think
on
it
highway?
depends on whether relative to other uses nearby. I mean, that's what it really
Probably
comes
near
down
a big
to.
highway,
think it
like
has to be on a
220.
Yeah, it does, but I mean, it depends, a lot of these uses depend, whether they work or not, depends on the other uses that are there
The
previously.
compatibility.
Right.
Compatibility with the surrounding community, and that's never really discussed in any of this.
Right.
Compatibility and how it looks, so to speak.
I think we'd be better served putting these in industrial areas, these distribution centers. There's a lot of compatibility with other business types there. And they tend to be like truck yards and,
Correct.
you know, a lot of overnight parking and stuff.
So what am I hearing? Do you want to pull that back out? Because, I mean, it is allowed, it is permitted in the industrial corridor. We don't have any of that map, but you okay with pulling that out, or you want to leave it as conditional
I
use?
would pull it
I
out
think
for now.
conditional.
Pull it out.
Or, well, conditionals opens the door, though. That's the only trouble with conditional.
So, show of hands, who wants to keep
It'd
it
be hard to make
in?
a warehouse facility look really good, you know, I mean.
Well, it's challenging.
I don't understand.
It's challenging, can be done, but it's never quite what you think it's going to be.
What does Pineweld have? Is it?
Pinewell has, take it out.
Yeah, let's
Take
take
it
it
out.
out.
All
Let's
right,
take it out.
we're taking it out. All right, we're in the home stretch here. Waste-related services, pretty short category. Debris management facility, we took it out.
What is it?
That's probably like a
Recycling?
recycling yard where you take waste and
Paper.
debris and stuff like, let me, 8.1.
Ironically, we need one of those for glass.
But we
That's the
don't want-
ironic part.
But you generally don't want it visible. Those things
visible.
those are harder to screen, because if you're
Right,
taking a bunch of
right.
trees
No, I
and.
just talked about the ironic
They need to
aspect.
be on the highway.
I just-
Well, in an industrial area.
I think they have to be, I don't know, I mean, I think they have to be.
Relative to the-
It's
uniformly
kind of
spaced
conflicting.
to
We're asking the
accommodate
county for help
customers.
with glass, but we want,
I keep going back to the UPS facility. There's a high volume, high activity,
right.
trucks
How you
in and
do it,
out.
it's not
and
how
yet
you
at the
do it.
same time, it seems like it really fit the way they did it.
Discrete.
Maybe inadvertently, but that's the way it worked.
no, I agree with
Where
you.
is the
Well,
UPS
I
facility?
mean, that's the theme here.
Oh,
I can't find that standard. I'm sorry, Jeff.
you're getting,
Where the new bar is, what's that bar down there? It's
now
like,
from Midland Road, if you're getting on Route 1 going north, there's a side road, just a few hundred yards up there on the right.
where you get,
Lumber services.
before that.
Before that.
Before that, the intersection
You
before
didn't
that.
Silex?
You didn't
You
even know
can't
it was
see it.
there.
You
That
can't
storage
see it.
place back there? you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. That,
Near
near
Carolina
Proctor
Storage.
Silex.
UPS is there, right?
Oh, UPS too, yeah, on Highway 1, it's
Okay,
near
we're
the,
digressing.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, and with uses like this, remember, we're only covering the first 400 feet. So after 400 feet in, there's, sometimes there is opportunity for something like this. It's 400 feet off.
thank you for that clarification.
Good point, it could be set back off the overlay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so we're in the very home stretch here, temporary uses, and you can see we're not proposing a whole lot of change. We're proposing pretty much everything to be a permitted use, because it's a temporary use. Now, there are some standards on it, and I can't put my finger on them right now.
What is a temporary use drop-in child care facility? How can that be temporary use?
I don't understand any
Sure,
of
I
that.
knew somebody's going to ask
why
me
I
that.
For children.
Well,
Don't plan to keep them that long? Is that the
Lot of
idea?
Go down
Parents
to
have been
10
looking
miles
for
an
that.
hour, push them out.
I actually do not know what the standard is on
I
that.
saw a child care facility somewhere
Got
else.
to get through this.
Wait, no, we are almost done, so is there a concern on that one? I know
I just
I know
say-
Pinewell has a concern on
I
all
don't
of them.
understand a lot of
I
these
thought I
temporary.
saw it somewhere else.
Let's don't
I can't-
permit something we don't understand.
Well, I
I
can't,
gotta read, I gotta
I
read.
can't
it.
get the numbers to line up either, so Jackie, you're,
Well, there's a
you're-
child care
on
facility
with
that's
that.
permitted or conditionally permitted under educational institution.
Isn't that
but
just a child care
temporary
facility?
drop-in,
My only question is, what does temporary mean to the county?
What I want to know. I don't understand what temporary means.
permanent.
This whole category confuses me.
like what, a lot of our temporary is 90 days.
Yeah.
So what their temporary is, because land clearing, how do you temporarily clear
I don't
clear
understand
land?
any of
I don't
this.
understand it either.
What's an itinerant
Itinerant
merchant?
merchant, temporary.
I should read it myself, I
It's
apologize.
a traveling salesman.
That might be,
Traveling salesman, the guy selling snake oil out of the
Okay,
back
so
of
a guy pulled over on the side.
sometimes they're you ever see the velvet Elvis paintings out in the.
Yeah, or the
Yeah.
bonsai
Sometimes-
trees, or
sometimes
the
that's
hot
what
dog stand.
So is there a lot of concern about that?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
That doesn't seem to ever be temporary. It usually is.
Right.
It's like across from Lowe's up there on 15501.
Right.
There's always
Temporary
somebody.
means this weekend and next weekend
Yeah.
and the weekend after that.
This whole category has a concern for me.
Something like a construction office, those generally are associated with a.
Yeah, but they're
You gotta allow
they're
that.
associated with a permitted
Yeah.
building.
I have a little problem with all this temporary stuff, to be
I
honest
do
with you.
too. I just don't
don't you just-
understand it.
Is that
Maybe I
for-
wouldn't if I understood
Okay,
it.
I think you have to allow temporary
construction office.
manufactured home or RV for construction sites.
Yeah, but that's associated with a permitted building.
Exactly.
I don't
It's
think-
associated with
I mean,
something else.
I understand all that.
Yeah.
Is that what this whole category is?
Well,
No,
I think a temporary construction office is valid, but I think maybe you should just tell them that we have an issue with all these
Well,
temporary
I
things.
understand the
'cause-
temporary real estate office for the same reasons.
I agree with
Yeah.
that. Temporary events, I mean, events are events. Yard sales?
I don't understand a lot of these, but I understand those.
Well, yard sale is the guy on the corner selling all his stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, if temporary, you have an open space and you contact the,
Put your car out there to sell it.
you know, you put all your home stuff that you're trying to sell. I mean, it's like a yard sale. It's like
It
a,
could be what you
Flea
described,
market.
but it doesn't have to be.
but that's,
Let me put
that's
a-
what comes to mind.
Let me
I
put
know,
a spin on it, if I may. You probably have to go and get a temporary use permit for all these temporary uses.
That's true. I would hope.
And maybe they wouldn't be appropriate for the highway corridors. How about if we kind of,
I just like to
Yeah,
understand.
no, I'm just saying, for example, yard sales. If your home was on a highway corridor because it's permitted by zoning,
have a yard sale?
why couldn't you have a yard sale?
But not if it's an empty lot.
Yeah, not if it's in the
permanent
right of way
temporary
or.
event.
True.
So, I mean, I think we just don't
Never mind, I found that section in the code now.
What do you got?
Way in the back, all right.
Jane is begging me to speak. Does anybody see her?
we got to get through this.
Which one did you want reference to? Which one were we talking about?
Yard sale, residential.
Yard sale?
No, the whole category,
Well,
temporary
I
uses.
have them all now.
Oh, that's it.
Yard sales, residential and civic, limit 4 per year. Definition, a temporary sale of normal used household goods by an individual occupant of a residence, a coordinated group of homeowners within an established development, or a nonprofit, civic, or religious organization for purposes of selling surplus household items for profit or charitable purposes. So,
So
Sounds
the
appropriate.
I don't think
Baptist
that-
Church
I don't have a
on
problem with
211 could
Yeah.
have a yard sale.
I do a residential use, yeah.
Yeah, but not necessarily on the property they own. They may, you know, get a permit
That's
to
what I
do
heard.
that
I heard it
on the
was.
corner, you know what I mean?
well, that says a temporary sale of normal used household goods by an individual occupant of a residence.
Occupant.
Yeah, but then keep going.
A coordinated group of homeowners within an established development, so that's a
Or a civic
subdivision
group that
wide.
wants to sell stuff.
That's what?
I would interpret that's at their property. I wouldn't, I would interpret it not on a green field somewhere.
Well, I wouldn't guarantee that.
No,
How
that's a
about the
good
guy
point.
selling the Christmas
It's 4
trees
times
down
a
here
year.
every year?
Maximum
That
of
is-
4 times a year. I mean, what harm can be done?
Well, you use a different truck, and it's a different permit, 8 times a year.
How about the gentleman that sells all the wreaths and the list Christmas stuff down by the Olmsted Village? Would that be considered a temporary use?
Christmas now.
We use, I can tell you that we use,
I mean, does he get a temporary use permit for that?
Yes.
Well,
Well, I would assume so, but it's Taylortown, so.
that's Taylortown, so they don't.
Taylortown maybe doesn't get a permit at all.
You just got to write a big enough check.
I mean, I can
Annex.
check, but most of the time you permit those as temporary uses and it's a very short period of time. I just can't find
The way
it.
I heard it,
Can't
I
find it
understand,
either,
I
but
heard
there's
it
gotta be a
different. It doesn't
permitting
sound
process.
inconsistent with people having yard sales, but seeing it written, it looks scary.
Why don't we just do our comment that we'd like to know more about
All right,
their
great.
temporary use permit process?
I think we just need to read it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
probably-
an
I
expert
probably
on
need to
that.
read it.
I'm not on there. Let me, all right.
Send that page.
All right, I gotta do some research. Okay, let me do some
You can
research.
send that page out.
Want facts, Jeff?
I don't see anything about a
Okay.
temporary use permit.
All right, we got through it. It's, well, we're still at my 4-hour mark.
Let's
So
take a
we're good.
vote. Who wants to let Jane speak? Jane, we're really, I mean, it's 20 after 8. 2 minutes.
Do?
Who's, short, relevant comments, 2 minutes.
I know you guys are tired, I'm tired too. I've been
know.
sitting here the whole time. This is so important to Pine Wild and has been for years. And here is an opportunity for us to approach the county and do something to protect Pine Wild in this 211 corridor that's sitting there right for the taking. And you know, over the last couple of years, we've had problems that we've had to work on between the plumbing night and then the Taylortown thing and all the rest of it. So this is why we are asking you, and I'm disappointed that you haven't really had an opportunity to take a look at what Pine Wild is objecting to. But here's the key things. In the area that is so close in to Pinehurst, I'm not talking about the part of the 211 corridor that's way out in the rural area. I'm talking about the part that's close into us and frankly right along Pine Wild Strip, and the same thing on the 15501. What we need to be mindful of is the types of uses that are appropriate in the vicinity and proximity to existing residential neighborhoods. And we also have to look at the types of uses that are going to be consistent with the welcoming gateway appearance and charm. That's important to Pinehurst itself when we
Okay.
get this close in. And what I was talking to Darren about before, almost done, what I was talking to Darren about before was proposing to the county that we maybe have a local area of a separate highway overlay that is local to us, that has
Pine
more
Wild
intensive.
Highway Overlay District,
Yeah.
Yep.
that is
They've
less
already got a
intensive?
couple different ones.
Oh.
Maybe they're, okay?
Okay.
That would be
let's-
helpful to.
I think that's
This
a-
is
a
Pine
good
Wild's
step.
opportunity. I'm asking for your help.
Here's what I think. I think that we should be going, I think we should go back to the county and request that they not have a uniform overlay standard across the county, and they retain their current framework, which would allow us to do a little bit more tailored approach to this in our transition zone areas like 211.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. One size fits all doesn't work when you get down into certain sections, and
Yeah.
I think we are hoping we have unique requirements. You know, we don't want to hobble the whole county with our thoughts. We want to have what's good for the county and good for us at the same time, and that narrows the focus down to just a certain area.
So there's an urban transition highway corridor overlay. That's what we should be asking for.
Well, we
don't
have
call it
that,
urban.
we have that right now, but what I hear, excuse me, what I hear is they're trying to develop just one county-wide standard, so that's going to dilute the effectiveness
Yeah, I
of,
think Jeff's correct.
Yeah.
I think maybe we need to keep the urban,
That should be the
Transition.
first
The
push
first
should be
thing,
to
but-
urban
push,
transition.
retain the urban transition
Sure.
corridor, and then ask us for the input on what changes we would make to this recommendation if we had that.
If we
That
had the
corridor.
power, if it was
And
just that, yeah.
I think we're saying things consistent with Jane's asking, so I think we're being very consistent. My concern is the selling side, and I feel like we have to do a better job of explaining to the county that their long-term interests and ours are the same. As soon as we cross that line and we start dictating to the county without explaining how the long-term implications are good for them and us, I think things get off kilter. And I agree with staff to staff and not politics to politics. I think staff to staff fixes some of that because you guys, you speak the same language. And I just really concerned if we get this out of kilter, which could happen with a Pine Wild overlay district. It could get out of kilter. And
Not gonna call
I
it
think we
that.
have to make sure that this is not our property, and we have to make sure we do a good job selling our interests are tied together. And their success is tied to our success, so.
And I think the best way to do that, Kevin, is to request an urban transition that starts probably at Pine Wild and comes in.
Somewhere
I
in
don't
that
know,
area.
We could ask the same thing on
And it would
15501.
start north on 15501 as you come in into the.
Exactly.
Toward the traffic circle.
And
would
it's,
start- We're on US 1, and I mean, it's,
and I agree, and it has to be more than just setbacks and landscaping. It has to include uses, because right now it
Right.
doesn't. None of the highway corridors restrict the uses. They only talk about setbacks and
Setbacks,
landscaping.
landscaping,
So I think the
parking.
highway
asking
corridor,
us for this input.
right.
Yeah.
So the highway corridor that we are looking for in particular has more restricted uses.
Yeah.
General highway corridors throughout the county can have other uses.
And not to be redundant, but it really, the other item's more important, character based development, which you could get all that right, the setbacks, the landscaping and the uses, and still miss
An
that
ugly
mark.
building.
Yeah,
So Darren, have Southern Pines and Aberdeen submitted their input on this
Not that I'm
request
aware of.
for the county? Okay.
I talked with both Justin and Chris Kennedy today, and I don't think they've submitted anything. I know Deb's going around to their village boards and talked to them, but I don't think that they've submitted anything.
learn things from them before we submit this.
I think it's a great recommendation that Darren and Natalie or whoever suggest an urban transition and then we can have much more input and we won't restrict. We don't want to be restrictive to the rest of the county. So I think that's your approach, Darren.
I like that. I like how you said that. That's the first nuanced approach I've heard.
Sorry, we didn't listen to Jane earlier. Okay, gotta go.
So move.
So moved.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? We're adjourning
Thank you,
our work
everyone.
session. I hope nobody watches this tape.
Well, I don't know. I think somebody does.
Somebody does?
Yeah.
But at least we made a stab at the uses that we would want.
Yeah, I thought that was a good exercise.
Thank you very much.
And I'm